This is a public service announcement. This is a public service announcement. What you're about to listen to may make you yell, shout, smile, and even laugh out loud. Youth baseball players, coaches, and fans join the Slide Podcast crew on their journey to make baseball fun again. Hear stories from players of all ages, plus tips and tricks from coaches and scouts. Now, if you're ready, give us a loud play ball.
Play ball.
There we go. That sounded like it came from like Wrigley Field, maybe, or something. That was that had some history to that voice. So
I'm ready.
Very cool. Welcome back to the Slide Podcast. I am Coach Aaron and Coach Jen, and Lila Brickwall Bratch is joining us tonight. How are you ladies doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing well. Yeah.
What's new in your world, Jen?
Lots of things with work. I could bore you with it, but I just hired 2 new people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're hitting on all cylinders. A lot of my focus has been there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's fun stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Anytime your business is growing, that's a good thing.
We are.
And I know you got your books together, so you know how to still continue to make profit. So
that's right. You got it.
Right. Lila, what about you?
I'm going to Reno tomorrow for a tournament.
That's right. You have youth nationals, right?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you're going to this tournament, of course, with your regular travel ball team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, have you been to Reno before?
Yeah, I went, I think it was 2 years ago for another BY event.
Now, is that one of the better complexes or fields that you've ever played on, or is that pretty common where you are?
No, they were pretty good.
Yeah, the pods and how they're set up.
Yeah.
And like the fields the restaurant there on site. It was it was nice when I went. So
Yeah.
I feel like that sounds very hot. I don't know why in my mind I'm thinking about a no shade, super hot. Is that how it is?
It's
from
pretty
what
hot.
I remember, yeah.
I don't think it's that bad, though.
Okay.
I don't remember it being unbearable because Tahoe and snow is still on the ground.
Oh, wow.
An hour up the road. So, because we got a chance to tour Tahoe when we were up there, and there was snow just covered the ground. It was crazy. Crazy. Well, Lila, I wish you the best.
Yeah,
and ball them out.
Yep.
So, how long is the drive for you?
Huh? Oh, it's like 7 hours.
Holy moly.
It's pretty far.
No, all right. Well, maybe we'll get a couple stories or something there from the road trip. That'd be pretty funny. So
Yeah, it's just me, my mom, and Ozzy, so it's going to be pretty chaotic.
there you go.
Is Ozzy a dog?
Oh,
It's my little brother. Pretty
I
close,
know,
though.
I'm just kidding.
Pretty close.
Oh, my goodness.
You got to let him out on the side to go potty.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was in Missouri last week for the Youth World Series in Lake of the Ozarks. And some of our videos and stuff have already started to come out with the kids that I talked to. But, man, I learned some stuff at the Lake of the Ozarks. And I made notes because I was actually one of the tournament directors. And so I personally connected with all the teams and all that fun stuff. But, all right, I saw really good supportive coaches, and some of this stuff is going to tie right into what this show is about. So I saw good supportive coaches. And Lila, how do you describe a good supportive coach?
Someone that will be there for you when you're down, someone that's not negative. They know how to pick you up, just stuff like that.
Yep. And so I saw a lot of really good examples of, very supportive, good coaching. And so that was a positive, Jen. This is followed up with a couple of question marks, but coach's body language. All right. What I noticed a lot is how the coach's body language is on the field completely dictates the body language of the players.
Yeah.
And then follow that right around to how a player handles if he makes a mistake. All right. And it's almost like they're on edge because that coach is on edge. And saw that a lot too. Um, you know, the good coaches talked and worked with the staff there amazingly. The coaches that I noticed were that more of not that supportive coach. They were always rude and like, personality traits, I guess you could say. Like it's not just because they're bad on the baseball field. It looks like they got some issues off the field. And I'm sorry if any of you guys are listening right now. Some of you did a great job, and some of you got some issues. And I don't think you might need to be coaching kids. Parents coaching from the sidelines. So keep in mind, this is a World Series. So we got tenured players. These aren't like, first time ever playing a tournament players. And so you've got more seasoned parents. Now, Jen, what do you think that was like?
I can just imagine. I don't know why the moms came to mind, but I'm thinking about the moms that are sitting in the bleachers, maybe causing a little bit of
I,
yeah.
s- I saw examples of great and bad. And what I noticed is some of these parents, maybe I think they may give hitting lessons on the side or something, and for some reason aren't coaches. And it wasn't just the women. The dads were involved too, because this is a big deal for these kids. It's a World Series. But here's the thing for parents, and if there's any parents listening right now, what you need to focus on is your child's behavior and helping them build, their baseball behaviors. And you can't change a behavior in one inning, let alone one game. And so
or
many
or on the
parents,
or on the ride home.
exactly. And like they were being very technical, like with some of this coaching from the sidelines. Now, keep in mind, every team out there had four coaches. Some even had more, but the child don't need to hear coaching from the sidelines, because sometimes, and I've been in this situation, and I'm sure you have as well, but like sometimes we've told a player to do something very specific, and that's in the batter's box, in the field, and like the last thing I need is a parent thinking their kid's lost and trying to help them and take them out of position to make the play. So
Yep.
anyway,
Even in 6U, um, I was gonna say believe it or not, but of course it also happens in 6U. So Coach Aaron, you know me, but for Lila and Ben, I played college ball. So I played since I was 4 years old and then played through college. I was a catcher. So my job was to read the swing of the batter to know if they were always early or if they were always a little bit behind. So even in 6U, I would have it's coach's pitch, but my circle player playing either on one side of the circle or the other based on how the batter was swinging.
yep.
And more times than not, I would move her to, let's say, the pull side, and then somebody from the stands would say, "Move over to the other side, move over," and I'm like, "All right, I know
Yeah.
that once I get to 8U and 10U, like this is not going to fly.
I
I've got to get."
remember having a conversation with a mom right behind the backstop who told her kid to do something that was completely opposite of what I had told him to do.
It's
And
mind-boggling.
he actually listened to me,
Good.
and I turned around to the mom and I said, "I don't need you coaching from the sidelines." And she was
That's
like, "But
tough.
he could have did this." And I was like, "Nope. We had a runner here." Or there was something that whatever she was thinking was possible wasn't even in the equation. So anyway,
For
here's the oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was going to say one small difference between baseball and softball is that a lot of times, because the pitch is nowadays, especially in college, I mean they are throwing way harder than they ever have before. I mean
Oh, no doubt.
a good fastball when I was in school was like 65, 68. And they're throwing in the low 70s now. So the reaction time between when they let go of the ball and when you have to swing is like instant.
Yeah.
So typically, like if somebody has the bat on their shoulder, I coach for them to just pick it straight up, right?
Yep.
So bless their hearts. If any of the parents that I've coached your kids are listening to this, the get your elbow up thing doesn't apply to softball.
No, but honestly, it don't apply to baseball either.
Yeah, not baseball either.
It really doesn't, and they mean well. Lord bless them, they mean well.
And they yell it out of ignorance because they've just heard the next parent yell it.
Get your elbow up, baby. Get your elbow up. And it's like, no. Like we teach. All right, you're in your resting position. You're waiting for the pitcher to get on the mound. And you literally just pick it up. Because from here to here it has to be so fast.
Yep.
And
I mean, it's crazy. Look, the reality of it is, listen, if you're players in a game, support, cheer them on. If they make it, if they make an error, look, you got to be able to be there and support those kids to make them want to continue to play. Right. And like practice out the house, doing batting lessons, hitting off a tee or something. That's where you make those coaching adjustments. But whatever. All right, I did have one comical takeaway though, and this is the last thing, and we're going to go to our guest. But the first base coach is now a new equipment manager. I'm going to tell you. It was hilarious. All right.
Oh, you mean with all the
Lila?
Yeah.
You know exactly where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like their whole. All right. So let's just say you got bases loaded. You probably got shin
at
guards,
least 3 arm sleeves,
elbow guards. What else, Lila? Sometimes
batting gloves.
Yeah. What is that up with that? Like, why do you take your batting gloves off?
I don't do it.
You see. They see the pros do it. They see the pros do it.
Maybe it's so you don't tear a hole in the palm of it if you slide.
True.
Jen, they ain't even thinking about it that closely. I can promise you this.
They're
And then on
not.
top of that, some kids are giving their sliding mitt to the first base coach.
And then they take it from the first base coach. Yeah.
So the first base coach may have 6 sliding mitts in his hand because he's got kids coming up to bat and he's got shin guards, elbow guards, everything else, and it's hilarious. Like there was multiple times where I yelled over to the first base coach. I didn't know you guys had an equipment manager now. Like you guys are big time. So anyway, I thought that was hilarious. So that's enough of our nonsense. This is actually going to be a super cool episode. So I want to introduce you guys Ben Carnes from the Mental Training Program. And this is going to be a little bit different style of podcast. Ben's going to talk to us a little bit about the program, and then he's going to work one-on-one with Lila as an example of how this program works. So, Ben, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. So there's a lot of conversation nowadays just about mental health. And there's always bad connotations, attached to those kind of things, making people, not want to admit they may need to have someone talk to or have someone to talk to. I've said it on the show before. I currently deal, with things that bother me. And, but now we're talking about kids and like how the mental health in our youth is being affected by some of these things. So Ben, tell us how you got started in this journey.
Yeah. So back in 2013, I was a second-year offensive coordinator. I played baseball, growing up, and then all the way through high school. I was always kind of more of a football guy. I played football in college. And so that, when I got out of high school, I apologize, when I got out of college, went back to my alma mater, got a coaching job there and was a second-year offensive coordinator. And we went down to state championship game and we walked into Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts play and we just froze. And it was like we had some guys trying to catch punts with shaky hands. We had some linemen that were in tears on the sideline, just kind of lost control of their emotions. We had the most talented quarterback in school history, just making some bad decisions that he hadn't made all year. And it was like, as coaches, we're like, guys, what are we doing? Just
Right.
play the game. And but when we kind of stepped back and evaluated afterwards, like, what were we doing to actually prepare our guys to be in control of their mind and body and their emotions in these high pressure situations? Like, the answer was not much. And so that off season, I knew what I was coaching the quarterbacks at the time, and I knew what my guys needed. And the head coach came in and was listening to something we were doing on, I don't know, maybe confidence or mental toughness. And he said, we got to do this with the whole team. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do this with the whole team. Like, how am I supposed to know what 130 guys need? Like, everybody needs something a little different. And was in the middle of getting my master's at the time, and I was in a sports psych class, and kind of dove in head first to the world of self-assessment and figuring out, like, how do we help athletes even begin to understand or explain what's going on in these high pressure
Right.
situations, and like what they're struggling with. And once we kind of figured that out, and we sort of figured out, okay, well, now that we know what's going on, how are we going to help them? We started to kind of put together a little bit of a plan, a little bit of a program. And 2016, we went back and won a state championship with a very under-talented team, but a team that was able to outperform everybody all year long. Just played pretty doggone close to their best all the way through. And other teams started hearing about this, other sports started hearing about this, got brought on to coach golf and football, and ended up writing a book and starting a podcast. And my company is called Mental Training Plan, and we're trying to help everyone come up with what is the plan that you need to take back control of your mind and body in these high pressure situations. And after being a teacher and a coach for 15 years, I stepped out to do this full time, and love every minute of it.
That's pretty awesome. Like, that story is, I think we see that story play out a lot on Sundays when if we want to relate it to even in the pros. I mean, these lopsided, wins, the big comebacks, like someone's mind wasn't right that second half or something. So how did you approach this with, high school kids and younger? Like, what's your method?
Yeah, so the focus cycle is where we always start, and we're trying to figure out, what's the event for you? Because for some athletes, it's like the pitcher walks a batter, all of a sudden it's like, I can't deal with this, or somebody
Yep.
strikes out, I can't deal with this. Some athletes, it's heading into this big tournament, or maybe it's this state championship game, and I'm freezing up. And so we help them identify, like, what's that big moment, and then we help them figure out what's the reaction. So, like, if you were walking out of the grocery store and you stepped off the curb and somebody laid on the horn, you wouldn't think to yourself, this is dangerous. You would just automatically react, and you would jerk almost unconsciously back up onto the curb. And so, these kids aren't thinking to themselves, like, man, if I could just have a panic attack, I'd probably be able to drive in this run. It's happening automatically. And
Right.
so we can bring that out and get them to pay attention to it. Just like the three of you right now aren't paying attention to what the bottom of your feet feel like, because your brain doesn't think that's important. But if you wiggle your toes, all of a sudden, all right, well, now we're paying attention to it. We can get kids paying attention to these things, and they can start to realize, like, oh, this switch in my amygdala has been flipped, and I'm starting to head down this fight or flight, or what we call getting off track, and I need to do something about it. And then from
Right.
there, we teach them some tools on how to take back control. And that's, quick overview of the focus cycle, and, the foundation of at least where we start with athletes.
Gotcha. So what ages do you feel like, from your opinion, is being affected from these type of issues? Is it
Uh,
only high school kids? Is it
well,
younger?
I would say that when my 3-year-old daughter loses her mind because her older brother steals her sippy cup and she throws this tempered tantrum and is screaming and shrieking and can't be reasoned with, and you can't talk to her and you can't calm her down. And it's like, hey, take a deep breath. And then all of a sudden we get some blood flow back to that front and top part of the brain, and we can help them start to realize, like, okay, maybe this isn't as big of a deal. I mean, what age do kids start playing sports? I think would be that kind of my answer.
Yeah.
I would say obviously the 28-year-old, professional race car drivers that I work with, that interaction is different than like the 10-year-old little league players that I work with.
Right.
Whereas like a 28-year-old is able to connect some dots in their mind about how they're feeling, and what, be able to express that. Sometimes it's just as simple as, like, with a younger kid, just give them some tools so they can
Yeah.
be back in control. That's all they need, because a lot of times, like, the younger kids are almost in a better spot because they haven't had as much time to build up these bad habits. They haven't had as much time to do some damage to that, whether it's over focusing on results, or mom and dad just heaping all kinds of unbelievable pressure on them, or whatever. This is absolutely something that we're trying to teach our own kids, which we got 4 under the age of 10. Like, we're trying to teach them all this stuff just as we go through life.
Wow. You know what? If you figure out how to manage those 4 kids under the age of 10, you might be able to write a parenting book there, because that's
I,
chaos.
I don't know about that one, Coach. We'll see.
I get it. Jen, do you want to say something?
I really resonate with. I have a 6-year-old girl, and if she gets out of whack, what she just actually did inside when she wanted to be on camera, and she's like, "You never let me do anything," it's like one of those. But if she really gets upset with maybe her brother or something else, if I can, if I can hold her and she can take a couple of deep breaths, she's absolutely fine. It's it's probably the number one thing that actually really works well for her. You can't tell her, "Callie, just calm down, relax." It's not that big of a deal. That sends her even farther over the edge. But if I can get on eye to eye with her and just hold her for a second and say, "Let's breathe together and we'll do it together," she's completely fine. And I'd like for her to take that on into her teenage and adult years. But there's also something to unpack, because I think that maybe for men as well, but for women, I can speak for us that, like, sometimes we're just told, "Oh, you're being dramatic. Just calm down." And it's like, "Whoa, you just really threw me for a loop there. Like, I am
Well, that's
definitely not
because you're
calming
so
down now."
upset. That's because you're so upset you broke a
Be
nail.
quiet. Be quiet, Coach Aaron. I don't have any nails. Yeah,
No.
it's just every person's a little bit different, but that works for my daughter. So I really resonated with what you said.
Yeah. I completely agree, because I mean, Jace, my 9-year-old, like, he's kind of the reason, inspiration for this show even existing, just because I noticed what he went through. And and I thought back to my childhood and the unnecessary pressures that sometimes were there. Like, I saw it showing up with him, and it concerned me. So, Ben, this stuff is near and dear to our hearts. So, like, as a parent, I know sometimes it's hard to say, you know what, I think my kid needs to talk to someone, because to some that may be an ego blow.
Mhm.
Like, they should be able to talk to me because I'm mom, dad, whoever. And, like, I think helping parents realize, like, when to see something. And it's not like, they're going to go out and do something horribly wrong, but, like, just dealing with those effects. Ben, like, what's some symptoms, what's some things that parents may want to think about and be aware of, when it's time to have someone pulled in and help their kid?
Yeah, I think it's when you lose control. I think it's when you reach that point where, Jen was saying some of the ways that she's able to sort of hold her child and do some breathing together, and all of a sudden, like we can regain control. You strike out and you lose your stuff and you throw your helmet and you have a conversation with mom or dad and after the game or a conversation with coach and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to move on. It doesn't happen anymore. Like you're in control. Great. You know, keep on moving through. I think when it's you're trying to do something and it's like you're stuck or you're out of control or it feels like there's an obstacle that's in the way and you can't take that next step, go see somebody. And like this is hands down one of the toughest aspects of my job because on one hand it's like there will be some times where mom or dad will call me and they're like, how do I convince my spouse that our kid should come see you? There's sometimes where maybe the kid wants to come and neither of the parents want him to come because like you said, well, why don't you talk to us? Why aren't we good enough to help you with your problems? There's other times that it's like the parent recognizes this problem and is like, will you please talk with someone? You're not talking with us. Will you listen to somebody else? And it's hard. And like, I'll speak from my own past. I've struggled in my own just mental health with some anxiety stuff. And, here I am, like I'm a mental performance coach. I get paid by people that play sports for a living to help them control their mind. And I can't do this myself. Like I felt like going to see a counselor or going to see a therapist was like me admitting, hey, I don't know how to do this. And I think what really stuck out and maybe finally sent me over the edge of like, this is ridiculous was, somebody pointing out Tiger Woods has a swing coach. It's like you pick whatever sport you want, take the best of the best. They have someone who is helping them, and it's not because Tiger Woods isn't great at golf or back in his prime, even like he had a swing coach. Like Tiger at his best saw value in someone else from the outside having a different perspective, being able to provide a little bit of guidance. And I think that was for me what finally broke down that stigma and was like, I'm going to go get some help for my own stuff. And it was life changing. And then I felt silly for not going and doing it sooner. But it's like, I think the more that we hear professional athletes talking about how like a Kirk Herbstreit just happens to be the latest one that came across my Instagram feed talking about how when he was walking into a sports psychiatrist or a sports psychologist office back in the early 90s, he was like looking over his shoulder, making sure nobody knew he was coming. And I think that we're really starting to kick that stigma and we're really starting to say this doesn't mean you're weak. If anything, it means you're a little bit stronger because you've got the courage to go and tell somebody else, I need some help.
Exactly. Lila, is any of this like connecting with you so far? I'm sure you've seen things, but what do you think about all this stuff?
Yeah, I do think it's important if you're struggling to go see someone. I haven't had any mental health problems personally, but I have seen people struggle. So I think it's really important to go see someone if you need help.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you a question, Ben. So, in the sports world and youth sports, if you see a kid struggling, right? If he's having breakdowns constantly, if he's losing his temper, if he makes a mistake, um, and a lot of those symptoms, and this kid is let's just pretend this kid is a serious baller, and it is sometimes. I mean, how would you recommend finding someone? Because is it that that family type counseling for the kid? Is it more of a sports thing? Because I think with some kids, it may register and relate better if they're in sports and with sports conversation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, for sure. I'm not gonna hand out advice on that
Okay.
because I'm gonna be honest. Like, in my local area, if you were
Uh-huh.
asking me that question, I would have some answers and some opinions. But I know, I'm in the Midwest. We got people down south and all the way out in California. Like, I'm not interested in answering that. Here's the guidance I would provide.
Okay.
So the counseling that I went to was a little bit more of like a therapy type session. I would pay her by
Mhm.
the hour. We would talk through things, and she would help me kind of come to some realizations and work through some things. I would call that
Gotcha.
more of a therapy type setting. I am a mental performance coach. I am not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a sports psychologist. I am a little bit more on the action side of things.
Yep.
This is not to say that one is better than the other in any way, because I do one for a profession and I have done the other in my own personal life.
Yeah.
But I've had a bunch of athletes in the past who have gone to counseling and they felt like they were just sitting and talking about their feelings and they wanted to go do something. And so, mine is a little bit more of you're struggling with this. Okay, well, here's some tools that you can use to overcome that. Here's some ways that you can take back control. Let's come up with a game plan for before your next game or after you throw an interception, after you strike out. How are we going to handle that? So, I don't want to. I
I
don't want
got
to
you.
start passing out too much more than that. But I would say that there's a big difference. And to be honest, I think that probably the best place to start is just by maybe talk with a family doctor, maybe talk with a trainer. I've got people from all over the country that work with me. You want to call me and talk through some things. Like I think the more you just have a conversation with some knowledgeable people and say, here's what's going on, I think the better off you'll be. I would compare myself to a little bit more like a physical therapist or like an athletic trainer than a doctor. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to, before things get really bad and you need to go see someone else, I'm trying to give you some tools, maybe some rehab, some ways that you can take back control. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I think that's where I would kind of
Yeah.
start off.
For sure. For sure. Um, yeah. Jen, any questions? We're gonna
Not
turn it
so.
over.
Yeah, not so far. I'm ready for the
No
big
pressure.
deal.
No pressure. Um, so Ben, I think you're right though. I mean, like sometimes there needs to be like you're the enhancement to the other, right? And I think that's yeah, I like how you put that. That's really cool. So all right, so now I'm gonna let you kind of walk us through what we are about to hear,
Yeah.
and then I'll let you take it from there.
Just from a time standpoint, give me just a little bit of guidance of what you're hoping, because like in a traditional one-on-one setting, I would say that what we're about to do takes an hour. I would say I can walk Lila through this in 10 minutes, but what, kind of based on where we're at,
Yeah,
what are you kind of
I think
hoping?
we've got. I mean, I think we're safe to say we've got probably 40 minutes, 45 minutes right now.
Perfect. Okay.
And just honestly, I'd like for our listeners to get a taste of just what working with you looks like.
Yeah. So this would be, we're kind of skipping over what I would call session one, where we do a mental skills assessment, going through the prime five, figuring out, like what's your confidence like, what's your ability to focus on the task at hand, control your body, optimistic perfection, motivation, things like that. We would come up with some main objectives, try and figure out like what are we trying to work on, and then session two would be guiding the athlete through the focus cycle. And Lila, that's kind of where we're going to start tonight. And I know that you've got paper and pencil, and that you were gonna, jot some things down. There's a worksheet that I like to give the athletes just because it kind of provides a visual of what the event is, and then what's the reaction, and how are we going to take back control. So to kind of start off with where we would begin session 2 here, there's really two main objectives, Lila, that I'm hoping tonight. Number one, I want to give you some tools to control your mind and body in big moments. Want you to be able to say, when the game is on the line, here's what I'm going to do. And then number two, help you develop a game plan for when, where, and how you're going to use these tools. Is that fair?
Yep.
Perfect. So in my book, Focus Cycle, the event that I used was a rattlesnake rattling when I was hiking with my kids. Any of you heard that happen in real life? No. That, I would say, this was the one thing that I've experienced that truly just terrified me and made me freeze, unlike anything I've ever felt. And my kids were there, and it was like, oh my gosh, where is this thing? What if it bites one of my kids? How are we going to get to the hospital? Where is the closest hospital? Like, I started going through some pretty dark scenarios in my mind real quick. Scientifically speaking, what happened? There's a slide that I show athletes that's talking about intercalated amygdala clusters and all these big fancy words. Basically, you can kind of boil it down to this: there are things that happen that cause a switch to get flipped. Now, you can think of it as like a light switch, like it's either on or it's off. You're either in this fear mode and those chemicals are present, or they're not. So like for my football players that I was talking about, Lila, that was, for some of them, it was like walking into Lucas Oil Stadium or playing in that state championship tournament. For me, it was hearing this rattlesnake, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, and that switch got flipped. If you were to think through like your playing career, have there been any moments that stand out where that switch got flipped, and maybe you froze, maybe you got tight, maybe you doubted yourself, or you didn't feel confident? What do you think?
So I feel like I get pretty like into my head when I'm catching, because I feel like since I'm a girl, I have to do it the best, because if I'm not the best, then what's going to stand out?
Yeah, so there's an extra pressure and an extra expectation for you to be doing something that maybe other people don't think you should be doing in the first place.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Perfect. So do you see in that box right there where it says event, and it's kind of up in the top left-hand corner? I just want you to jot down a note and put like, my big moment is behind the plate. It's when I'm catching. And then what we're going to do is kind of work through what all is going on, because there's going to be things that you notice and things you pay attention to, and just like we were talking about, right now you're not paying attention to what the bottom of your feet feel like. There's probably some things that you're not even paying attention to. So the first area is focus. And so we know just from a scientific standpoint that focus affects performance. And, we can go into studies and talk about dirt bike riders, how when they look at obstacles, muscle tension actually takes them a little towards that. And so they're taught to look where they want to go, not at the obstacles they're trying to avoid, because we know focus affects performance. We can look at, if you hooked up somebody with a functional MRI machine, and, we're looking at like somebody that was shooting a free throw or somebody that was hitting a golf shot, and you'd be able to see some muscle memory, which would show up as neurons firing in a certain pattern over and over and over when they were doing this task. maybe catching, maybe framing that ball up, or maybe swinging a bat, something you've done a million times in your life. But all of a sudden, if this basketball player starts focusing on, oh shoot, this is the NBA Finals, and last game I airballed a free throw, and now the crowd's chanting at me, and now I'm starting to get in my own head.
Mhm.
That those neurons wouldn't be firing in that same pattern. We'd see some skipping around. We'd see some distractions starting to show up, and so now all of a sudden, you don't have access to that same muscle memory, and it's like, why does this feel different in this moment? Because we know
Mhm.
focus affects performance. So
Mhm.
if you were to think about those moments where you're behind the plate, do you think, are you more focused on like what other people think, maybe some external stuff? Or are you more focused on like internally, like I've put in so much time and I've worked so hard for this? Are you thinking more about like the past? Are you thinking about the future? What do you think you're focused on in those moments behind the plate?
I think in those moments I'm really focused on my future and how my performance can affect that.
Tell me more.
Um,
Specifically, like when you say future, are you talking about like 5 years down the road, 5 months down the road, 5 games down the road?
I'm kind of thinking mostly about high school ball because that's my closest goal. So I'm
Okay,
thinking because I'm playing on an all-star team right now. So when I mess up when I'm catching, I'm thinking, oh no, what's the coach gonna think about this?
perfect. So what do you see down in the bottom left hand corner? And I know this is kind of funky that we're filling a worksheet in from the bottom, but we're going to talk about why we're doing that here in a little bit. Down at
Hmm.
the bottom where it says bottom up reaction, and it's kind of
Yeah.
leading to those automatic emotions, where it
Hmm.
says focus in that box, I would put future / what does coach think? Do you think is that fair to say?
Yeah. Because the coach is the high school coach. So that's why I'm kind of really thinking about it.
For sure. Then the next one is self-talk.
Hmm.
And we know that the average person has about 48.6 thoughts per minute. So
Hmm.
that means when I heard that rattlesnake, there's probably a good chance that my mind wasn't going, well,
Yeah. No.
this is
Oh,
dangerous.
no.
My mind was, oh my gosh, what's going on? Where is that thing? It's going to bite one of my kids. What are we going to do? Vacation's ruined. What if we have to go? Like, it's
Yeah.
just spiraling. So if you were to think about like in those moments where you're behind the plate and you're worried about like, am I going to be able to do this in the future? What's the coach think about this? I got to make plays.
Mhm.
What's that little voice in the back of your mind saying to you?
Uh, like positive or negatively, because there's multiple, I feel like.
Absolutely. So I would say the positive stuff we're going to leave alone.
Uh,
I would say we're trying to focus more on what's the negative so that we can come up with some tools to combat those.
um, I feel like I'm thinking, what am I gonna do if I don't perform like this?
Don't perform. Excellent. So that,
Hmm.
and I'm just jotting down some notes here because usually I'd be able to see your worksheet, but I want to make sure that I can come
Yeah.
back and reference this stuff too. So, what am
Hmm.
I going to do if I don't perform? So, absolutely,
Hmm.
in that box where it says self-talk, that's what you would put in there, and
Uh,
that's those voices and negativity that are starting to creep in. Do you think is there ever like some am I good enough to do this?
yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think that kind of goes along a little bit with like the future piece, right? Like,
Hmm.
am I going
Yeah.
to be able to do this? Am I going to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing that we talk about is our physical reaction. So we know that in these high pressure situations, when this switch has been flipped, that your breathing increases, your heart rate increases, your mouth gets dry, or you get butterflies in your stomach sometimes because your digestive system temporarily shuts down. Your muscles tense up. Sometimes we get shaky hands. Your liver releases fats and sugars into your bloodstream. You got adrenaline pumping through your body potentially. Are there any physical side effects that you notice in these moments behind the plate?
I feel like it's mostly just I feel the adrenaline pumping. That's like most of it.
Okay. Is there anywhere that you feel that extra energy specifically? Any, like, you feel that in your hands, your arms, your leg, or just kind
Yeah,
of all over?
I feel like my hands shake a little bit.
Okay. So in that box where it says body, I would put adrenaline and shaky hands. And so, all of this is just happening automatically. I'm sure you're not, working with some catching coach that's telling you, "Hey, if you could just focus on the future and whether you're going to be good enough to do this and the fact that you have to perform and impress this coach, get some extra adrenaline going so your hands get shaky, that'll help you play better." Right? Like that's not happening.
No.
But it is happening. Like for some reason, your brain is detecting this threat, and it's just saying, "I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. What if we fail? This is not good. I don't like it."
Yeah.
And so now you've got some emotion that's being created in that middle part of your brain. If you had to put some words to it, some athletes get worried, some get stressed or anxious, some feel unconfident. Some athletes just get flat out ticked, like they just get mad. What would you say emotion wise you tend to feel in these moments?
In these moments, I tend to feel unconfident and stressed a little bit.
Perfect. So we're gonna write unconfident. And did you say stressed was the second one?
Yeah.
In that box where it says automatic emotions, because again, you're not trying to generate this, it's just happening.
Yeah.
So what we would traditionally do next is watch this video, because this video basically takes an entire chapter of my book and it summarizes it in like 3 minutes. We don't really have a great way to do that, so I'm going to kind of explain the video. Okay.
All right.
So it basically super simplifies regions of the brain. So the lower part of the brain it calls kind of the primitive region. Some people refer to it as like the automatic section of your brain. Things just
Yeah.
happen. Like it makes your heart beat. It tells your stomach to digest food. Like you don't have control over it. It just sort of happens. You've got this green part of your brain that is right in the middle, and on there, you'll see the color coding on your worksheet there. And that middle part is where you start to feel this unconfident. You start to feel stressed out. You start to feel some emotions that you maybe don't really love. And
Yeah.
so basically, in my book, I talk about how that's kind of that bottom up reaction. It's just happening automatically. And basically, the front and the top part of your brain is where you're able to think through logically, and you're able to decide, no, this isn't that big of a deal. If we were sitting in the room together, a quick example of this would be bam, and do something that startles you, and that lower part of your brain will react, and there's a little bit of, wait, what just happened? And then the blue part of your brain catches up and says, oh no, it's okay, this weird guy just clapped and yelled for some reason. And so it starts to calm that green portion of the brain down. Coach Aaron, I saw that hand go up. Did I get you? I'm sorry. And so it's it's not that there's anything intentional about this. It just
Mhm.
happens. So
Yeah.
looking at your worksheet, everything you filled out so far is down at the bottom. You'll notice it's all in red. I would categorize all of that as reaction. It just happens.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
what do we do about it? So,
Yeah.
as we're working through you taking back control, I want to work backwards. So, if you had to pick, where do you play at your best? Would that be like you're confident? Would that be you're in control? You're calm? Where do you play your best baseball?
I play my best baseball and I'm confident.
Okay. So right there in that box, we're moving up where it says intentional emotions. We're
Yeah.
going to put confident.
All right.
And what we don't want to do is just sit around and hope that the confidence fairy comes and magically sprinkles confidence on your, like, don't wait for something that's not coming. If you want
Yeah.
to feel confident, then let's do the things that it takes to build up some of that confidence.
Yeah.
And where we always start is with the body. And I know that, imagine, and I will say, I'll preface this with, when I say this to my 3-year-old, she's good with it and she'll take a deep breath. But if this 28-year-old professional race car driver that hires me to come work with them is having all these things, which I'm not going to lie, like what you have written right here, you would be absolutely amazed how many professional athletes are dealing with the exact same thing. Am I
Mhm.
good enough? Am I going to get bumped up? Am I going to get my shot at the big leagues? Am I going to get this? Am I going to get that? Is coach going to like this? Not like that? But
Mhm.
if he hires me and brings me in and says, "All right, teach me how to take back control," and I look at him and say, "Hey, the next time you're stressed, just take a deep breath." What do you think he's going to say?
No.
Yeah,
Like,
like, that's
that's
dumb.
silly.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
don't you give me something that's actually going to work, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I put up this diagram of the vagus nerve, and it basically shows that this nerve connects to that bottom part, that it's the red part of the brain on your worksheet, and it
Mhm.
goes through and it connects your heart, your lungs, your liver that's releasing fats and sugars, your stomach. That's why some athletes throw up before games, your intestines. That's why some athletes have other digestive issues going on. It's what's responsible for all this stuff that's happening in your body. And it's almost like there's this fire alarm that's just pulsing up and down this nerve. And it's saying, this is not good. We're in danger. This is a threatening situation. Everybody get out.
Mhm.
You can't control anything on that nerve except your lungs. And
Mhm.
so the US military spent millions of dollars on, how do we help soldiers take back control of their body in these super high pressure situations where their life is on the line. And after spending millions of dollars, they figured out, you breathe. And it's not just because this is like magical and let's just sit around and everybody take breaths. It's because it interrupts the activity that's pulsing up and down that vagus nerve. And now you can start to take back control. And
Mhm.
now it's kind of like, oh, all right, well, maybe we should give this a shot. And so on the backside of your sheet, you've got little boxes on there where it says inhale, hold, exhale, pause.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna pull out stopwatch on my phone here real quick, and I'm gonna take you through a couple different ones. Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to count down. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then you're going to inhale. And a lot of people teach to inhale through your nose because it slows down your breath. Some people have allergies that doesn't really fly for them, but you're focusing on a big, slow breath. Then we're going to hold because we're trying to do the opposite of hyperventilating, that where air's just
Yeah.
moving in and out, but your lungs can't absorb any of the oxygen. We want your lungs to grab a hold of that oxygen. Then we're going to exhale. We're going to get that air out, that carbon dioxide out. And then we're going to pause. And we're not going to start our inhale again yet, because if we can increase the time between these inhale cycles, we can start to stretch out and slow down our heart rate variable, or the little peaks that you see on an EKG machine. Okay?
Yeah.
So here we go. We're going to start off with a big deep breath. So 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it would repeat on and on like that. Okay. So
Yeah.
that just happens to be the way that the US military teaches diaphragmatic breathing. And some people like that. Some people don't like that. Everyone's lung capacity is a little bit different. And right now, if you got on Google and you typed in how to do diaphragmatic breathing, you would get like 8 different answers from 25 different people who all swear by their method because they found some way that works for them.
Yeah.
And so what I have my athletes do is take out a stopwatch, and I'll have them, all right, let's go ahead and inhale. And if you got a stopwatch handy and you want to do this, you're more than welcome to.
No.
But basically, here's what you would do. You would hit start, and then you would inhale. Just like that. And then when your lungs were full, you would stop that timer and you would write down that time in the blank on the back of your sheet. So mine just happens to be 6. I like to inhale for 6. And then we would count off 6 kind of in our head as we inhale. And then we would start that timer as we hold our breath. And then when it's time to exhale, we would stop the timer. And then we would write that number down. Now, if anyone at home is kind of doing this on your own, you want to make sure that those first 2 numbers add up to at least 8. So the first number needs to be at least 4. Altogether, it needs to be 8 that you inhale and that you hold. Okay. And then the exhale and the pause also needs to add up to 8. So what I'm gonna have you do, Lila, is tell me the 4x4 breathing that we were doing. How'd that feel? What'd you think about it?
I liked it. It felt good. I feel like
Okay.
it really slowed down my breathing. Yeah.
Okay. So what I would do is I would tell you go back to the front side of your worksheet there, and where it says body next to top down, I would just go ahead and write 4, 4, 4, 4. And that's the inhale, hold, exhale, pause. And
Yeah.
if you want to play with those numbers later and you want to adjust that, like, cool, that's fine. But that's a great place to start. The second way that we take back control of our body is called forced muscular relaxation, or FMR. And I want you to do this. Can you make a fist for me real tight? And then inhale. And then hold. And now exhale and loosen those hands up. Okay? What you basically just did is you told that front and top part of the brain, it's blue on your little diagram there in front of you, the front and top part of the brain to take back control of that muscle tension. Sometimes we tighten up in high pressure situations. Sometimes we almost like lose control and we shake a little bit in high pressure situations. And so what you can do is, instead of allowing that lower part of your brain to decide whether your muscles will be tight or not, you can use that top part so that you're back in control. So I've got some golfers that will, every time they grab a club out of the bag, they just hold on to it and they squeeze, and then they loosen up and they go. And unless you were looking for it, nobody even really notices. But that's something that, behind the plate, you could tighten up your entire arm. You could squeeze your shoulders. You could do whatever you wanted to, whatever was tight, and you can kind of force it to relax. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do this for me, Lila. Go ahead and close your eyes. and then relax your face. And now relax your forehead. And now relax your jaw. And now relax your lips. And then you can open your eyes. So, like, the first time I did that, somebody said, relax your face. And I was like, all right, this is weird, but okay, done. What do we got next? And then they said, relax your forehead. And I was like, oh, like, I didn't even realize that that was tight. Like, did you experience that at all?
Yeah. Yeah. It
And then,
feels like my face was like drooping down.
yeah. And so, sometimes like we don't even realize how tight we actually are until we sort of go, like if you're doing it with your arm, you can start with your fingers and then make a fist and then, tighten up your forearm and then work on your bicep and like work all the way up your arm. And you can start to pay attention when you get tight and then you can do something about it. So on the front side of the worksheet, that's the second tool that you've got, right? So number one, you've got the deep breathing. That's going to slow down your heart rate. That's actually going to help with muscle tension a little bit as well because we're
Hmm.
decreasing activity on the vagus nerve. But the forced muscular relaxation, that's your second tool. That'll help you even more with that muscle tension or those shaky hands. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Cool. Moving on. So self-talk. Here's probably one of my favorite activities. All right. I was in year 2. This was the year this was 2013 that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. And on the front end of the season, we went down and played a school at Lucas Oil Stadium in a regular season game. And they traditionally kicked our butts. Like they scored a whole bunch of points on us. We did not beat them very often. And I was not in a real great spot. I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. I don't know if we can score points on these guys. This guy's been coaching for so long. Like, I don't know if we can win this game.
Hmm.
And I was in the middle of getting my master's and I was in a sports psych class. And they said, write down the things that are always there, even when you're playing at your worst. And I was like, I watch a lot of film and I'm organized. Like it wasn't a real impressive list. But I knew that I did that. I watched a lot of film and I had things organized. And then it said, write down what you will achieve. And so I wrote down, I'm the best coach in the state. Because I was trying to be the best at what I did.
Yeah.
And I was not there, obviously, because in the back of my mind, as I was writing this, it was like there was this little voice in the back of my mind that was like, best coach in the state? Pfft, you're not even the best coach on your staff. What are you talking about?
Hmm.
And so then it said, combine those two and come up with your go-to statement or a statement that you can go to even when things are difficult. So I wrote down, I put in the time, I put in the work, I'm the best coach in the state. And then it said, say it 50 times a day. And I was like, 50 times a day? Like, is this actually going to do anything? So I put in the time, I put in the work, I'm the best coach in the state. I put in the time, I put in the work, I'm the best coach in the state. And by the end of the day, nothing happened. And by the end of the day, Wednesday, it was kind of like, well, you have put in a lot of time. But by the end of the day, Saturday, that little voice in the back of my mind was like, yeah, let's go play this game. And we scored a lot of points, which was good. We lost the game, which was bad. But those were just the outcomes. Neither of those determined whether this was successful or not. What was successful was I could just get out of my own way and do my job. So that's something that self-talk that you could kind of on the backside of that sheet, you've got some room where you can write in that box, that first one, the reasons why you're great or the reasons why like maybe you're never going to quit. or maybe you work hard than other players your age, or maybe you put a ton of time in. And Lila, this is one that I'm going to ask you not to share on air. This is really the only one. Like I do some work with a girl who's playing in professional golf tournaments right now, and this was like the one thing on the YouTube video that we didn't share because it's not really anybody else's business. And when other
Mhm.
people know about it, you actually put some extra pressure on yourself to perform, and we don't want that. So as you're kind of filling out on the backside of that sheet and you're figuring out like, I work hard, or I put in a lot of time, or I know I'll never
Mhm.
quit, things like that. And then what you will achieve. Some athletes, it's like, I'm the best baseball player in the state. Other athletes, like, they're trying to remind themselves that they can't be stopped. And so they'll say, like, I put in the time, I put in the work, I'm an unshakable force. Or
Mhm.
some athletes are trying to, just keep it short and sweet. And they want to say something like, I can, I will, or I've put in the time, I will not quit. I have what it takes, or something like that. So
Mhm.
you can kind of play around with that. If you want to shoot me an email and you want to be like, hey, I need some help with this, I'm happy to help you. I don't really want to work through it on the air because it's not other
Mhm.
people's business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions about it?
Nope.
Okay. So the next piece then is what you're going to focus on.
Mhm.
So let's kind of talk through some things that are in your control or some things that are not. So what the coach thinks about you, in
Not
your
my control.
control or not.
Not.
Okay. How you've performed in the past,
Not in my control.
not anymore.
Mm-mm.
How you will perform in the future.
Control.
Can you
Well,
control it right there in that moment?
not right now, but
You can do some things to influence it, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, but we're not really in control of it in that moment.
Mm-mm.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Whether or not your team wins,
Not in my control.
you can influence it, but
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if everybody on the other team hits a home run and you have the greatest game of your life and no one else on your team gets on base ever, like, you're not going to win, right? So you
Mm-mm.
don't ultimately control that. What about your attitude during a game?
In my control.
Your effort,
My control.
what you focus on?
That's in my control.
Yeah, so on the back of that sheet where you've got those 4 boxes, I would have you kind of fill those out. And for anyone listening at home, you know, we've got an academy where schools sign up and they do this from all around the country. And the first thing that we're asked all the time is, can we do an electronic version of this? And my answer is no. And the reason I've got a whole podcast on, does journaling actually do anything, and all the regions of the brains that are involved when you're writing things out by hand. But if I was a parent listening to this, or I was an athlete listening to this, I would take out paper and I would write things that are in my control, and I would write down things that are not in my control. And then I want to do the same thing, Lila, with things that matter right now. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say, and we're talking about like during a game,
Okay.
you have bad technique when throwing out a runner trying to steal second base.
Oh, that's not right now, no.
Do you need to fix that? Does that matter? If you want to be the best catcher you can be?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter right now in the middle of the game, right?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
What about that's another one, like a golfer who maybe is slicing the ball. Do they need to fix that? Yeah, but not in the middle of a round. If you're
Yeah,
at the
no.
plate and maybe you're dipping your shoulder, does that matter right now? Probably
Mm-mm.
not in the middle of the game. Like, the things
Yeah.
that matter right now are this pitch. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what matters right now. Is that fair
Mm-hmm.
to say?
Yeah.
So on the front side of that sheet, I would have you fill in like, what do you think would be most beneficial for you to focus on? Would it be most beneficial for you to focus on like this pitch? Would it be controlling the controllables or controlling those things that you're in control of? Like, what do you think you should be focusing on behind the plate?
Controlling the things that I can control.
Perfect. So I would write that down. Control the controllables. So I mean, figuring out what's that sign, figuring out what's the situation, worrying about your attitude, worrying about your effort. It's also a good reminder that you don't have to worry about the future in that moment. That's a great reminder that you don't have to worry about the coach
Yeah.
because you can't control those anyways, right?
Mm-mm.
Awesome. So I would say everything that we have done so far tonight is not going to help you be a better baseball player unless you then go apply it on the field. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So on the bottom half of that sheet,
Mm-hmm.
it says game plan.
Yep.
And when I was coaching football, when I was coaching quarterbacks, I would make every single one of my quarterbacks fill this out, cut this out, hang it up in their locker so that they saw it, I saw it, teammates saw it, and basically here's how you're going to fill this out. And we can't really see what you're writing, so just shout some things out. Like, when are the times in a game that switch might get flipped? Sometimes it's before a big game, or after you strike out, or after you have a passed ball. Like, in your mind, what are those times?
Pass ball, not good technique, not throwing out a runner when I in a big spot, just things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything before a big meaningful game or before a big tournament ever, or not really?
No, not really.
Okay. So here's kind of what we've got now, right? You, on your sheet, you've got 4 tools written down.
Mm-hmm.
You've got focusing on controlling the controllables.
Yep.
You've got your go-to statement that we're not going to share. You've
Yep.
got forced muscular relaxation so that you're not tightening up, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got your breathing. Okay.
Yep.
So sometimes, like, especially like a sport like golf, where there's a ton of time in between every single shot, you can go through a routine. Sometimes golfers will literally go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they'll move on and go do their thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could, if you thought it was helpful, say your go-to statement, take your breath, do your forced muscular relaxation, and focus on controlling the controllables.
Yep.
Or, because that might be a lot every single pitch. Or what you can do is kind of treat it like first aid, where sometimes you need a band-aid, sometimes you need a big bandage, sometimes you need to get stitches, sometimes like you need to go to the ER. Like, maybe sometimes you just need to take a deep breath, go back and play ball. Maybe you need to do forced muscular relaxation and take your breath after a passed ball, because that's when you really start to tighten up. So beside each one of those things on your game plan, I'm going to have you write down, like, do you want to do all 4? Do you want to do just one of them? Do you want to do a couple? Like, what's your plan? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't need to share this with everybody, but like I said before, if I'm a listener and I'm doing this at home, like, this is what I'm going to maybe share with a parent or a teammate or a coach or somebody that just says, hey, like, here's my plan, and maybe they can help hold you accountable, and they can sort of be on your team and provide some support, and things like that. So that's kind of a quick run through of how session number 2 would go. And if you guys have any questions, I'm all ears.
I have nothing.
Lila, I want to say, first of all, like, thank you for being a part of this. So, I mean, course, to a lot of kids, this is vulnerability,
Yep.
and you had the courage to go through it. So, first of all, thank you,
Hmm.
Ben. That was super cool. Like just how you helped them realize, or her realize, these different things that are going on. Um, I can speak for myself is when I get upset, I don't want to calm down
Yeah.
and making my when and I often call Jen to vent to, and Jen, you're gonna have to remind me to take a breath, so or breathe. But I think what you just did is definitely something that hopefully parents can hear and start to at least have a conversation, and then find that expert that can help them and their child.
Yeah.
So that was cool. That
Yeah.
was
I
great.
think just recognizing that the processes that are going on in our bodies are actually anxiety, or like are an anxiety type response. So when Lila first started, you asked her like, do you have any anxiety? And she's like, yeah, not really. Well, then actually those responses are a form of pressure on yourself or anxiety or whatever you want to label it as. Doesn't matter what you label it. It's something that goes on in our body that we don't necessarily have a lot of control over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just identifying that, and it's like, oh yeah, actually that does happen to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Well, then now I have the tools to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because just in everyday situation, you're probably like, no, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of anxiety, no depression. I'm a super happy person. I have a lot of friends. Yeah, I'm good. But in reality, like I remember with me in college, I think the the first inning was a lot of jitters, and then things calmed down a little bit after that. But your lineups being called, the starting infield is being called, and the national anthem's going off, and you're like, your adrenaline's really pumping. But to have any control over that is really powerful.
Yeah. Like Lila, you said pass balls, not throwing out of a runner. Um, those are things that could happen multiple times during a game. And so when you think about it, if it's a bad game, like look how those different things, how they made you feel. Like think about previous games, and whether it was a lot of pass balls or you had a lot of stolen bases. Like now at least you have, here's the like, just like Ben said, Ben, you framed it up perfectly, is none of this stuff will help you be a better ball player unless you implement it. And honestly, like I'm thinking, like in your catcher's helmet, having a sticker or something in the bottom of it that says, whatever your go-to is.
Yes.
That way you take your helmet off, look at it, that's your reminder, put it back on, you're ready to go. I mean, I don't know. I was
But
listening to those things, but
Lila, I could show it to you. I could go get it right now. In my glove, in my catcher's mitt, on the inside of the strap,
Mhm.
the Velcro strap, I have a word written right there. I have one written on the top of the mitt, and then on the inside where like my palm goes. So I had three different words written there that nobody ever knew that they were
Yeah.
there except for me. So I think
Hmm.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea. Put them wherever you'll be able to um, obtain them quickly.
Yeah.
yeah.
Love that.
I mean, thinking about, hitters that stress so much when they walk into the batter's box. I was one of those. Because I had the fear of getting out. I didn't want to. I definitely didn't want to strike out. But even thinking about bat and helmet having something on the back or in the inside, or just thinking through like what causes you the most anxiety, and then like Ben said, like start building a plan to help you overcome those things. It sounds so simple,
Yeah, and I,
but
I think I think where this starts to become really powerful is when you see how this applies to literally every area of your life. And you can, once
Oh
you
yeah.
learn this framework, you can do it pretty quickly. But like I've gotten emails from former players that, use this before they proposed to their girlfriend. I got on the other extreme, I've got an email that I got from somebody who came up on a car accident with people that were screaming hysterically, and like they were able to think through, okay, how do I control me and them, and how do we make a decision, and what do we need to focus on? And like, I mean, you can use this the rest of your life as you start to learn how to control your mind and body.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a quick story about how I beat the system using this, like not even knowing that I was doing it? So we had physicals for college ball. And they would take our resting heart rate, and I was like, I'm going to be the lowest. I'm going to have the lowest resting heart rate. So, not knowing the science behind it, I did the breathing technique where you can slow your heart rate down. And my resting heart rate's like in the 50s. Everybody else is in the 70s because they're all nervous that their blood pressure is going to be high. I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a pretty calm person. I think most of the time.
What did you say?
Jen, look,
What?
my rest and heartbeat's in the 40s.
That's because you're dead inside.
That's cold, Jen. That's cold.
I had to. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Well, Ben, I'm gonna tell you that was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out to walk us through that. Hopefully, some of our listeners or viewers, got something from that, and hopefully, they'll reach out and maybe get some more information from you. Ben, how can our listeners, viewers get in touch with you?
Sure. You can go to mentaltrainingplan.com or on social media. We're on all the major ones, Mental TR Plan. Pretty easy to get a hold of from there. So happy to help out in any way that I can.
Very cool. Very cool. I think that wraps us up. Lila, any takeaways, any thoughts around
I just
everything?
thought that was really cool. That was a cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Well, look, you know what? I didn't get a chance, Jen, to talk about all the new words that I've learned.
Save it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to save it for the next show. So I learned some new vocabulary out there at the World Series. So,
Oh, I bet you did.
Sigma.
Yeah.
Did I say that right, Lila?
Yeah. It's
Sigma.
Oh,
Do
I
what?
think it wasn't yesterday, but that was the last one where we were just talking. You were saying that.
Yeah, Sigma. Got to be the Sigma, Jen.
I think Colton. I looked through his phone. Obviously, he's 11, so
Mm,
I think I've seen that in some of his text messages.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yep. Hey, you'd be surprised how many kids I talk to that use it have no idea what it means.
I'm sure.
And I'm like, you can't say something and not know. Like, you're going to get me in trouble for repeating it.
Yeah.
Ben, I think, have you heard this word yet, Sigma?
I have not.
Riz. The Rizzler. I learned that one today. The Riz. I think I'm going to start calling myself the Rizzler.
You
Lila,
should.
what do you think? All right. Well, listen, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We're pushing an hour and a half. And if you're still here, I know you walked away with something from this one. So thank you guys for listening. Please, download, subscribe, share, leave us a review. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, all these other different podcast apps, iHeartRadio, all the major ones. Leave us a review if you like the episode, if you like what we talked about, or even if you didn't. If you didn't, just send me an email. Don't hit me with a bad review. So anyway, thank you guys. Follow us on all social medias, YouTube as well. And at the end of our show, Ben, we got one last question that we have to ask everyone. And I about forgot it, Lila. I'm gonna let you ask it.
I wasn't gonna let you forget.
Thank you.
So let's just say you're walking out to the plate. What's your walk-up song?
Ooh.
What would be your walkout song, Ben?
Oh man, put me on the spot.
This is a hard question for a lot of people.
It would not be what it was when I was in high school because that was not an appropriate song that I'm going to share on a podcast that younger viewers. So now, what would it be? I don't know. I'm gonna go with some kind of worship song. If I was
Okay.
40 years old and strutting up, something like that was gonna calm me down. That's what I would go with.
Okay. All right.
There's a drone flying in my backyard right now. Sorry. You know what came to mind, Ben, when Aaron asked that was Thunderstruck. I don't know why.
Okay.
Thunderstruck? Well, that's appropriate. I mean,
it's clean.
we've had a guest on here say NWA, and he couldn't say the title, and we've had all sorts of different answers. So,
Fair.
yep. All right. Well, at the end of every show, Ben, you started us off with play ball, and we're going to let you finish us off as well. So at the end of every episode, we say, until next time, and our guest says, we'll catch you on the slide.
Cool.
All right. Lila, I'm going to let you do this one as well. Lila, I want to tell you again, thank you. You've been, you're kind of becoming like a mainstay here on the show. So you're building up them podcast skills. So interviews you've done are phenomenal. Keep them up. Maybe get us some cool stuff from the tournament coming up.
Yeah.
So, yep. All right, Lila, I'll let you take it from here.
Until next time.
We'll catch you on the slide.
Ooh, there you go.
We thank you for toughing it out and pushing through. Now, let's go teach the world great sportsmanship, leadership, to go inspire someone through your dedication and excitement for the game. Make sure to smash the like and follow button on all social media at The Slide Podcast Show and The Slide Pod on Twitter. Plus, leave us a review and feedback. Until next time, we'll catch ya on the